Excellencies, Presidents, Judges, State Minister, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Courtroom 600. Welcome to the International Nuremberg Principals Academy. My name is Christoph Safferling and I'm the director of the Nuremberg Academy, and it's my esteemed pleasure to open the Nuremberg Forum 2024 for every child protecting children's rights in armed conflict. I feel very honored by the great number of guests that have come to this opening day of the Nuremberg Forum 2024. I would like to welcome in particular Dr. Thomas Dickert, the President of the Higher Regional Court and as such the landlord of this courthouse. I warmly welcome Tania von Uslar-Gleichen, who is representing the federal government as its legal advisor. It's also a great pleasure to welcome State Minister Joachim Herrmann, who is the State Minister in the Free State of Bavaria for the Interior. You have visited the Academy several times, State Minister, and it's so good to see that you keep coming back. A hearty welcome to Julia Lehner, who just arrived, the mayor of the city of Nuremberg, representing one of the founders of the Academy, but also a dear friend and supporter of the Academy's work. Most importantly, I welcome our keynote speakers of this evening. Karim Khan, ICC prosecutor. The Academy is very honored that you took the time to come here to Nuremberg and to speak to us in Courtroom 600 despite your tough schedule. Professor Stephanie Schmal, Vice President of the Advisory Council. Here she is. Warm welcome. I welcome all the members of the Advisory Council, Navi Pillay in particular, as the President of the Advisory Council, but who will leave office in February. So I welcome also Silvia Fernandez as the incoming President of the Advisory Council, and Serge Bramatz, another Chief Prosecutor and another Vice President. Warm welcome. I welcome the participants of our opening discussion, my colleague Professor Patricia Viata from the Friedrich-Alexander-Universität Erlangen-Nürnberg as moderator, Yael Danieli, Ans Gerten, and Jasminko Jalilovic. Warm welcome. I'm particularly fond of other UN officials. I'd like to mention in person Alice Deritou, UN Secretary General's Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, and Shibon Mulay, UN Special Rapporteur on Trafficking in Person. I greet from my thankful heart all the other 30 speakers and moderators of this conference. A welcome also to the colleagues from the Bavarian judiciary. In Nuremberg, represented by President Margit Zorn and President Andreas Zwerger, as well as President Matthias Burkhardt from Bayreuth. A welcome also to the Dean of the Law School of the Friedrich-Alexander University Erlangen-Nürnberg, my colleague and dear friend, Michael Fischer. I welcome the audience here in this room and online, as this conference is live streamed on our YouTube channel. Now this ends my quick introduction and welcome in this courtroom here in Nuremberg, and I'd like now to refer to the President of the Higher Regional Court of Nuremberg, Dr. Thomas Dickert, for his welcome remark. Thank you so much.
Chief Prosecutor Khan, State Minister Herrmann, Mayor Professor Lehner, President Navi Pillay, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. As the host of the Nuremberg Palace of Justice, I would like to welcome you to this year's Nuremberg Forum, which will address the international and national frameworks for the protection of children in armed conflicts. The date and topic have been excellently chosen by the International Nuremberg Principals Academy, as the Nuremberg Forum coincides with the 65th anniversary of the UN Declaration of the Rights of the Child and the 35th anniversary of the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child. The UN Convention of the Rights of the Child of November the 20th in 1989 has been ratified by most countries in the world. This means that children's rights are universally applicable. The four general principles of the conventions are that all children and young people shouldn't be discriminated, should have their best interest accounted for a primary consideration, have the right to survive and develop, and have the right to have their views heard and taken seriously. The Convention of the Rights of the Child applies to 2 billion children and is probably the most successful human rights document all over the world. The European Union has in Article 24 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights also defined the rights of children. They are entitled to protection and care, can express their opinions freely, and have the right to maintain a regular personal relationship with their parents. The child's best interest must be the primary consideration when a decision is made by a public or private body on behalf of a child. In Germany, fundamental rights apply equally to children and young people. The National Action Plan for a Germany meeting children's demands focuses on equal opportunities through education, growing up without violence, participation rights, and ensuring an appropriate standard of living for all children. Children are the most important resource in any society because they secure the future. At the same time, children are the most vulnerable members of any society as they are not fully able to express their needs and defend themselves against abuse. Children's rights are particularly at risk in armed conflicts. This is the topic of the Nuremberg Forum this year. But in times of peace, the protection of children equally requires special attention, vigilance, and sensitivity. In Germany, the police have noticed a significant increase in sexual offenses against children and young people in recent years. In the last 5 years, the number of cases has tripled. The Internet is very often the central instrument of the offense. For example, when the offender initiates contact with minors via social networks. However, the Internet can also become a crime scene itself. In addition to the offenses that have become known, there is a large number of unreported cases, as many offenses take place in a family environment and are kept secret. In 2023, there were 17,700 registered cases of sexual abuse of children and young people in Germany. In more than half of the cases, there was a particularly close relationship between perpetrators and victims. It is an important task of the state to effectively protect children's rights and vigorously prosecute crimes that harm children and young people. Child protection is a task for society as a whole that never ends. Child protection requires a culture of observation and cooperation. No signal, no matter how weak, should go unnoticed. If the child's well-being is at risk, immediate and decisive action must be taken. As the weakest members of our society, children and young people need unlimited support. Parental rights end where parents endanger the benefit of the child or are unable to ensure it. In this case, the state must act, if necessary, against the parent's will. The family courts intervene when the benefit of a child or young person is at risk. This is the case, for example, in cases of neglect or violence. In the worst case, the child must be separated from his parents. Children's rights are also particularly important in family court proceedings. The court must always hear the affected children personally and get a personal impression. The child's view and wishes are an important criterion for the judicial decision. The law enforcement authorities punish sexual and violent crimes against children and young people with a great vigor, regardless of whether the perpetrators come from the social environment or are third parties. Avoiding repeated interrogations of a minor victim is of central importance. In order to achieve this, the victims are questioned by the investigating judge at a very, very early stage, and the questioning is audiovisually recorded. The recording can be played in the main criminal court hearing instead of a new interrogation. The child or young person is spared from having to give evidence again in the main hearing. Re-traumatization is avoided. In Fürth, a 15-minute drive from here, we are currently building a childhood house, a child protection center, together with the Fürth Clinic, the Playmobil Foundation, and other partners. Children and young people who have been victims of physical or sexual violence will be cared here from a single source in a transprofessional cooperation. They receive medical and therapeutic support, and the Child Protection Center is involved in the investigation process. The aim is to reduce the number of interrogations of underage victims and to conduct the interrogation in a familiar and child-friendly location. The Fürth Child Protection Center will be inaugurated on November the 15th in 2024 by our State Minister Hermann, and will then begin operations quickly. A case manager is already working on site. She is building the necessary network between the police, the judiciary, the youth welfare office, the hospital, and other agencies. Children's rights are universal. They apply in times of war as well as in times of peace. Children's rights have top priority in constitutional states. Good prevention is crucial. It is just as important to pursue vigorous prosecution if violent or sexual crimes have occurred. With this in mind, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you an interesting and productive conference and a pleasant stay in Nuremberg and here in the Nuremberg Palace of Justice. Thank you very much.
Herr Minister Hermann, Frau Bürgermeisterin Lehner, Chief Prosecutor Kahn, President Pillay, President Dickert, Professor Safferling, Your Excellencies, esteemed professors, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it's also a great pleasure to join my voice to those welcoming you here at this historic venue of the Nuremberg trials for the opening of the 2024 Nuremberg Forum. I would like to extend my gratitude to the Academy and its director, Professor Safferling, for its commitment to advancing international criminal law and human rights. The theme of this year's Nuremberg Forum, Children in Armed Conflict, could unfortunately not be more timely. For 35 years, the Convention on the Rights of the Child has enshrined children's rights formally in international law. Since the year 2000, the rights of children have been further bolstered by the optional protocol on the involvement of children in armed conflict. Yet, while these milestones are crucial in international law, we have little reason to celebrate today. The 2023 UN Secretary General's report on children in armed conflict revealed devastating figures. Nearly 24,000 grave violations were documented across 25 countries, including recruitment, killing, sexual violence, and attacks on schools and hospitals. This is not just a failure to protect our youngest and most vulnerable. It is an assault on the future of entire societies. Germany's foreign policy is guided by the lessons we draw from our history. A key principle that has emerged is our responsibility to protect those most vulnerable, particularly children in times of conflict. However, as ongoing conflicts show, this goal is far from being reached. Germany will continue to advocate for accountability and the enforcement of international norms. We firmly believe that without justice, there can be no lasting peace. One of the actors in this endeavor with whom we work closely together is the International Criminal Court, and we thank you, Chief Prosecutor Khan, for being here today. Let me please cite the haunting words of the then prosecutor of the ICC, used upon the court's first trial in 2009 to describe the horrors experienced by child soldiers. I quote, "They were 9, 11, 13 years old. They cannot forget the terror they felt and the terror they inflicted. They cannot forget the sounds of their own machine guns. They cannot forget that they killed. They cannot forget that they raped and that they were raped." In that trial, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, brought justice to children who had been recruited into the militia and forced to kill and die on the battlefield. The court convicted the man responsible for their enlistment to 14 years in prison. And, for the first time in the history of international law, the court invited those children to give testimony as victims in an international trial. This shows that the ICC's work has been what it has been all about ever since. The court is giving a voice to the survivors of the most atrocious crimes. As strongly as we believe that there can be no peace without justice, we are equally convinced of the urgent need for the reintegration of children and child soldiers. These children have been robbed of their childhood. They suffer from severe trauma. They seek peace, forgiveness, and acceptance. It is our duty to provide them with the necessary support. Therefore, Germany actively supports initiatives that offer these children the help they need. Let me point out as an example the respected NGO Watch List that has produced a guide entitled Handover Protocols for the Transfer of Children Associated with Armed Forces and Armed Groups. This guide outlines how transfer affected children from the custody of security services to civil protection actors, and that has already been very successfully implemented in Yemen. This illustrates the need for international framework to go hand in hand with practical, on-the-ground initiatives to secure children's future. The diverse perspective of experts, practitioners, and policymakers represented at this year's Nuremberg Forum provide an important opportunity. An opportunity not only to learn from each other, but another opportunity to work towards closing the gap between the harsh realities children face in conflict and the protections envisaged in legal frameworks. I'm confident that this forum will contribute to advancing the protection of children's rights. Thank you very much.
Sehr geehrter Herr Minister, meine Damen Präsidentinnen, sehr geehrter Herr Dr. Safferling, Herr Dr. Dickert, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you in the name of the city of Nuremberg. We are very pleased having you here, and we look forward to very intensive discussions, and we are so grateful that we have this very international Nuremberg Principles Academy for over 10 years here in our town, and it's a very beautiful thing for all of us. Since the middle of the 19th century, there have been efforts to provide civilians with a certain level of protection in wars and armed conflicts. Children, in particular, are in need of protection. Children are affected by conflict in diverse and dramatic ways. During and after wars, their development opportunities are restricted. They suffer in many forms. Their lives are often directly threatened. Child day care and school education are often no longer available at all. Children witness the most horrific events and are exposed to extreme physical and mental stress situations. They can be forced to becoming child soldiers or into slave labor, and they often become victims of sexual violence. Since the beginning of the Russian war against Ukraine, we have also observed that mass abduction of children, their placement in foreign families, and their forced so-called ratification. Those affected suffer from all these acts of violence for the rest of their lives. In addition, immense damage is caused to the affected communities over many generations. The protection of children must therefore be an urgent concern for us. This proves our humanity. This protection must go far beyond immediate conflict situations and how to overcome them. If we give a future to children, we enable the affected societies to have a future at all. It is a human right, especially for children, to grow up free from war, from violence and deportation. Nuremberg has imposed a moral code on itself based on its difficult history and the resulting responsibility. Our principles are reflected in the name Nuremberg, City of Peace and Human Rights. The International Nuremberg Principles Academy puts in this way in their mission statement: sustainable peace can only be achieved through law. Children are the future. Protecting their rights and demanding on promoting the protection of their rights is an elementary contribution of international criminal law that points into the future. I wish you all an insightful and fruitful Nuremberg Forum 2024 and a good stay in Nuremberg. I would like to thank the International Principal Academy for organization and holding this important event. Again, thank you for being here. Have a good stay. Thank you.
So I'm the last and very short speaker. I address you in my capacity as the president. I'm still the president until Sylvia takes over. President of the Nuremberg Principles Academy. So on behalf of my colleagues at the Academy and the wonderful staff who put together this forum, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all the distinguished guests, distinguished colleagues. I'm so pleased to see so many individuals with expertise on this subject who have agreed to come and address us. And no matter what each one of us has done, I assure you, we still learn from you, so do share what you know. The focus obviously is on protection. We haven't come here just to explain the principles, and what should be done, but how can we best protect children? We hear them now on our TV screens saying, you know, my sister's just been killed, the baby's just been killed, what are you doing to protect me? The academy was established by the federal government of Germany, the national government, together with the state of Bavaria, 10 years ago. And I hope that the government is satisfied with the tremendous growth of this academy. The one thing they stipulated is that they have a panel of international participants to watch over the program and so on. And I appreciated that they wanted the principle of universal application of the Nuremberg principles, not a selective application when it suits the South, North, East, or whoever, or whichever country. And this is why all of us have participated now for close to 10 years on this academy. We come from all continents of the world, and there's a nice gender balance. There's always room for improvement, of course, but there is geographical and gender balance and a commitment from each one of us to ensure that we have programs like you. And so we truly appreciate your participation. Thank you once again, very warmly, for being here.